Camera motion, go.
So here's where we are in the story. Jesus, God's son, knew that soon he was going to give up his own life to fulfill God's amazing rescue plan. It would happen in a city called Jerusalem. And so, that's where Jesus went. Just outside the city, Jesus stopped. He sent his friends ahead of him. He said to look for a donkey colt that was tied up, which no one had ever ridden before, and bring the donkey to him. If anyone asked them why, they should say, "The Lord needs it." Sure enough, they found the donkey, and Jesus climbed on. People saw Jesus coming and they crowded onto both sides of the street like they were waiting for a parade. They threw their coats on the ground so the donkey's hooves wouldn't get dirty. And they praised Jesus with palm branches, the same way they would welcome a king. That's why we remember this day as Palm Sunday. Anyway, the people said, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna! Hosanna!" They were praising God and saying Jesus was Israel's true, long-awaited king, the rescuer, God's son. Some religious experts didn't like what the crowd was up to, and they shouted at Jesus to make the people stop. But instead, Jesus said even if the people were quiet, the very stones around them would cry out. In other words, if people didn't welcome Jesus as their king, creation itself would welcome him. You might think all this would have made Jesus feel really happy, but instead, as Jesus looked up and thought of all the people living in the city, he got really sad. So sad, he started crying. See, Jesus knew what was going to happen. He was with his 12 closest friends, the disciples. But his friend Judas would betray him, and his friend Peter would deny he even knew Jesus. He also knew God was going to give him all the power in heaven and on earth. But he would give up that power and be arrested, beaten, and put on trial. And he knew crowds of people could be easily deceived. Today, the crowd was cheering for Jesus and calling him a king. But in a few days, the crowd would call him a criminal and say he should be crucified. Because Jesus was a different kind of king. Most kings see what they want and take it for themselves. But Jesus saw people in need, and instead of taking, he gave. Most kings don't trust anyone because they think people might betray them. But Jesus knew his friends would mess up, and he loved them anyway. And most kings would throw huge parades for themselves, riding majestic horses and chariots to prove their strength. But Jesus showed his strength by serving people, and ultimately, he would give up his own life. But that comes later, and I can't wait for you to hear that story.